I was reborn in my past life. I was overjoyed, thinking my husband was coming to take me back to the manor, only to walk in on my husband, Chu Yanshu, having an affair with his cousin Feng Ruoxi in the carriage I had prepared for him. I lunged forward like a madwoman, tearing at the carriage curtain, wanting to drag that adulterous pair of number out. But I am just a weak woman. How can I be a match for a trained fighter like Chu Yanshu? He kicked me to the ground with one foot, glaring down at me with eyes like he was looking at trash, and scolded in a cold voice. Bai Qingyu, do you have any dignity as the Shizi's wife? Ruoxi's body is weak. She can't handle being frightened. If you dare to throw a tantrum again, don't blame me for being ruthless. The disgust and killing intent in his eyes are, to this day, still carved into my very bones and blood. Please make sure you've adjusted to a comfortable position. Our main story is about to start now. Reply in the comments section, and tell us what city everyone is reading our story from. Latter. Feng Ruoxi got out of the carriage with a tear-streaked face, shrank into his embrace, and timidly said to me, "Sister-in-law, don't blame cousin. It is all my fault." The surrounding servants pointed and whispered about me, saying I was jealous, calling me a shrew, saying that a merchant's daughter like me wasn't good enough for the pure and noble young lord. I became the laughingstock of the entire capital, but I love him. Loved him to the point I was willing to sheathe all my sharp edges for him, wash my hands to make soup, manage his entire estate from top to bottom, and be filial to his parents. To even put his mind at ease, I voluntarily offered up the entire vast fortune of my Bai family as a ladder for him to climb up. I thought my efforts would eventually make him have a change of heart. But what did I get in return? It was the Bai family being falsely accused of colluding with the enemy in treason, with the entire clan executed. It was my 7-month unborn child, turned into a pool of blood by a bowl of abortion medicine, he personally forced down my throat. Before I died, I saw him dressed in a brand new red prince consort's robe, triumphantly marrying the new emperor's personally appointed Princess Ale, Feng Ruoxi. That scene was a 10-li-long red dowry procession, and the entire nation celebrated. He stepped on the fresh blood and corpses of over 100 members of my Bai family to ascend to the pinnacle of power. So it turns out, from the very beginning, this was a setup, a massive conspiracy, targeting me, targeting the Bai family. This overwhelming hatred is what allowed me to crawl back from hell. In this lifetime, I will not cry again. I slowly got up from the ground, patted the non-existent dust from my skirt, and a cold smile curled at the corners of my lips. Mi dowry maid beside me, Chun Tao, was so anxious she was about to cry, lowering her voice to persuade me. "Madam, we should head back to the manor first. Don't embarrass ourselves here." I glanced at her. In my past life, it was this very Chun Tao who, after I was sent to the military brothel camp, climbed into Chu Yanshu's bed and became his bed-warming maid. A disgrace? I chuckled. I am not the one who is a disgrace. I turned my head and ordered Bai Yan, the leader of the Bai family guard, standing to the side, in a low voice. "Bai Yan, take all our men and carry this carriage for me, exactly as it is, to the gates of the imperial palace." Bai Yan was stunned, his face full of disbelief. "Madam, this is absolutely out of the question. The young lord is inside. If we cause a scene at the palace gates, how will the Marquise's manor save face? How will you save face?" "My face," I scoffed. My face was already torn to shreds by him when Chu Yanshu was rolling around in bed with another woman. Now I am just going to pick it up and personally give him a big gift, that is all. My gaze was cold and firm, with an unquestionable authority. Bai Yan has watched me grow up since I was little, so he knows my temperament. Seeing that my mind was made up, he gritted his teeth and replied in a deep voice, "Yes, miss." He no longer called me madam, but called me miss. He knew, from this moment on, I was no longer Bai Qingyu, the wife of the heir of the Marquis of Dingyuan's residence, but Bai Qingyu, the eldest daughter of the Bai family. The Bai family are imperial merchants, wealthy enough to rival a nation. The guards who came with me as part of my dowry number more than 50, and every single one is an expert. With a single command, dozens of guards in sharp attire poured out, instantly surrounding this specially made luxurious carriage so tightly that nothing could get through. The jolting and noise inside the carriage came to an abrupt halt. Chu Yanshu's alert voice came from inside. "Who is out there?" No one answered him. The well-trained guards passed thick poles under the carriage, and with dozens of men exerting their strength at once, they let out a low grunt and actually lifted the heavy carriage, along with the two people inside, steadily into the air. "Insolent! Are you trying to rebel?" Chu Yanshu roared in the carriage, trying to rush out, only to find the carriage door had already been firmly jammed shut from the outside. He began to frantically slam against the carriage walls, and the carriage started to shake violently. Feng Roxy's scream also rang out. "Ah, cousin, I am so scared. What is happening? Don't be afraid, Roxy. I am here." Chu Yanshu was still softly comforting his sweetheart. How ridiculous. I watched all this coldly, turned and boarded another carriage that had already been prepared, and only gave a light command, to the Imperial Palace. The procession of carriages set off mightily towards the Imperial Palace. Along the way, this strange sight attracted countless commoners to watch. A carriage being carried by dozens of guards, still shaking constantly and emitting the panicked screams of a man and a woman. This was a rare spectacle in the capital, one not seen in 100 years. Which family is this, and what are they doing? That is not how you carry a sedan chair. Listen, it sounds like a woman screaming inside. Heavens, I think I just heard the voice of the heir of the Marquis d'Inuan's estate. Young lord, whose people are those carrying the sedan chair? That is quite a grand spectacle. The sounds of discussion surged in like a tide. I was sitting securely in the car, holding a cup of warm tea in my hand, steady as a rock. Chu Yanxiu, don't you care about your face the most? Don't you care the most about your pristine reputation as the capital's #1 young master? Today, in front of the whole world, I am going to rip this hypocritical painted skin of yours off, layer by layer. Soon, we arrived at the palace gate. Today is the 15th, the day of the court assembly. The civil and military officials have just finished court, and are walking out from the palace gates in 2s and 3s. I had timed it perfectly. "Stop," I said lightly. The guards carrying the horse carriage stopped in unison, heavily setting it down in the very center of the square before the palace gates, perfectly blocking the officials' path. Everyone's gaze was drawn over. I stepped gracefully from the carriage, in a simple and elegant dress, my face bare of makeup, yet it couldn't conceal my city-toppling beauty. Only, those eyes that were usually so full of tender affection were now filled with ice. I walked straight to the carriage, and facing the tightly shut door, I spoke out loud. My voice wasn't loud yet. It clearly reached the ears of everyone present. "Husband Chu Yanshu, the bumping sounds inside the carriage have stopped." Among all the officials, several colleagues who were on good terms with Chu Yanshu recognized my voice, and all of them showed expressions of astonishment. Marquis d'Inuan, my father-in-law, is currently standing at the very front of the crowd, his old face instantly turning the color of a pig's liver. "Bai Qingyu!" he yelled sharply. "What the hell are you doing here? Hurry up and get out of the way." I ignored him, and just continued speaking to the carriage door. "Husband, you and your cousin Feng Ruoxi must be tired after tumbling and turning in the carriage. I specially invited you here to the palace gates to get some air and clear your heads. Guess, at morning court today, did the emperor praise the heartfelt memorial you submitted? Guess, those colleagues of yours, the ones who usually praise you for your noble character, what would they think if they saw the state you are in now?" My voice was flat and emotionless, yet every word struck a vital point. With a boom, the crowd exploded into an uproar. What young Lord Chu and Miss Fang are in the carriage? Oh my God, this is simply an unheard of scandal. The face of the Marquis d'Inuan's residence. It has been completely lost now. Marquis d'Inuan was so angry his whole body trembled, pointing at me for a long time without being able to utter a word. You venomous woman." He wanted to come up and grab me, but was blocked by Bayan and his guards. "Your lordship," Bayan said with a blank expression. "My young lady is in a bad mood right now, so please don't come any closer." Mutiny, is your Bai family trying to rebel?" Marquis d'Inuan roared, exasperated and furious. Just then, the carriage door was suddenly kicked open from the inside. Chu Yanshu, with his clothes disheveled and hair messy, rushed out. His eyes were bloodshot, like a man-eating beast glaring deadly at me. "Bai Qingyu," he squeezed my name out from between his teeth. How dare you do this to me? Right after Fang Roxy, also with disheveled clothes and crying pitifully, scrambled and stumbled out of the carriage. Upon seeing the scene, she immediately let out a scream, and fainted, of course, fainting right into Chu Yanshu's arms. What a delicate white lotus. I looked at Chu Yanshu. He was wearing the brocade robe I had sewn for him with my own hands, but now it was covered in wrinkles, and a glaring lipstick mark was left on the collar. Why wouldn't I dare? I smiled slowly, that smile filled with endless mockery and sorrow. Chu Yanshu, my Bai family paved the way for you, helping you rise meteorically. I managed the household for you, so you had no worries behind you. For you I even gave up my own pride, but what about you? How have you treated me? You take my efforts for granted and trample my love underfoot. You are out there being lovey-dovey with your white moonlight, and you still want me to guard this chastity archway for you. Chu Yanshu, what gives you the right? My voice suddenly rose, clear and resolute, resounding throughout the entire palace gate square. Today, I, Bai Qingyu, am right here, telling you in front of all the civil and military officials of the court. I spoke word by word, my voice resounding. I want to divorce you, Chu Yanshu. From now on you can get married, and I can get married, and we will have nothing to do with each other. You walk your sunny road, I'll cross my single plank bridge, in this life and this world. We will have no ties anymore. With that said, I pulled a pre-written divorce paper from my bosom and viciously threw it in Chu Yanshu's face. The paper fluttered down lightly, but it was like a loud slap slapped on his face, slapped on the face of the Marquis of Dingyuan's mansion. Chu Yanshu was completely stunned. He probably never thought that the Bai Qingyu who was completely obedient and submissive to him, who loved him to the bone, would use such a tragic and resolute way to give him a fatal blow. The look in his eyes as he looked at me was filled with shock, anger, and a trace of panic that even he himself hadn't noticed. And I, without even looking at him again, turned around and, surrounded by a crowd of guards, left without looking back. Behind was the whispering of all the court's civil and military officials, the thunderous rage of Marquis Dingyuan, and Chu Yanshu's suppressed roar. All of this has nothing to do with me anymore. Chapter 2. Pulling the firewood from under the cauldron back at the Bai residence. Father and my older brother were already waiting for me in the main hall. They had obviously heard about what happened at the palace gate. Father was so angry his face turned pale, while my elder brother had a worried look on his face. Qingyu, you were too impulsive. As soon as father saw me, he said heartbrokenly. After you made such a scene, do you still want your reputation? How are you going to get married in the future? I knelt before my father and gave a heavy kowtow. Dad, your daughter is unfilial, but if I don't do this, I am afraid I will die in the Dingyuan Marquis manor. I raised my head, my eyes filled with inconsolable grief. Your daughter married the wrong man, was a poor judge of character. Please punish me, father. My elder brother Bai Yan hurriedly helped me up, frowned and said, What silly things are you saying? That bastard Chu Yanshu did such a disgraceful thing. He is the one in the wrong. What does it have to do with you? It is just that the matter of divorce, I am afraid. Isn't that simple? The Marquis Dingyuan manor won't let go easily. They're still counting on our Bai family's financial power, I sneered. It is not up to them whether they let go or not. Big brother Dad, starting from today, all of the Bai family's business dealings with the Marquis Dingyuan's estate, cut them all off. All the connections we planted by Chu Yanshu's side to pave the way for him, pull them all back. I want to make him, Chu Yanshu, fall from the clouds into the mud, and see how he can still be so aloof and arrogant without the Bai family's support. In my last life, these were all the sharp blades he used to deal with the Bai family. In this life, I am going to take all these blades back in advance. Father looked at the hatred burning fiercely in my eyes and was stunned. He had never seen me like this in his impression. I had always been the naive and innocent little daughter he held in the palm of his hand. Qingyu, you Dad, I interrupted him, my tone earnest. Trust me this once, your daughter won't be foolish again. Our Bai family cannot become a stepping stone for others to rise to power, only to end up being discarded after we've served our purpose. The 4 words, when the rabbits are dead, the hounds are cooked, made my father's expression instantly turn grave. He was a shrewd businessman and immediately smelled a whiff of unusual danger from it. He pondered for a long time, and finally slammed the table. Fine, we'll do as you say. A daughter of my Bai family will never suffer such an injustice. Who the hell does the Marquis d'Inuan's household think they are? Without our Bai family, I'd like to see how they'll gain a foothold in the imperial court. With the support of my father and older brother, my heart settled a little. The first step of revenge has been taken. What follows is a long and arduous war. Just as I expected, the next day, Marquis d'Inuan brought Chu Yansu to my door to apologize in person. I couldn't even be bothered to see them, and just had the butler relay a message. The divorce agreement has been issued. From now on, the Bai and Chu families have nothing to do with each other. Please leave. Chu Yansu stood outside the gate for a full 2 hours, but was finally dragged away by force by Marquis d'Inuan. He stood by the second-floor window, coldly watching his departing back. He seemed to sense something, and suddenly turned his head to look in my direction. Our eyes met, and I could see the resentment and inquiry in his. He couldn't figure out why I had changed so much. Chu Yansu, you will never understand. The taste of hell will turn a naive woman into a life-reaping, vengeful ghost. Soon, my revenge of pulling the rug out from under him began to show its effect. The Bai family cut off all financial support to the Marquis d'Inuan's estate, and several of Chu Yansu's important projects in the court immediately came to a standstill. Those officials who were originally friendly with him for the Bai family's sake now also started to avoid him. For the first time, his previously smooth-sailing life had run into a huge obstacle. He started to frequently run to the Bai estate, sometimes bringing valuable gifts, sometimes writing sincere and heartfelt letters, trying to win me back. As for the gifts, I returned them untouched. As for the letters, I didn't even glance at them before throwing them directly into the brazier. The more anxious he became, the calmer I was. I knew that this was far, far from enough. What I wanted was to have him utterly ruined and disgraced, to have the entire manor of Marquis d'Inuan be buried along with my Bai family. I began to use the memories of my past life to plot for the future. I know that in 3 months, a great flood will happen in Jiangyan. The imperial court's disaster relief will be ineffective, causing public resentment to boil over. In the end, it is Chu Yansu who will propose a brilliant work for relief plan, which will not only solve the disaster, but also build important water conservancy projects for the court, for which he will receive the emperor's great praise and be promoted by 1 rank. This life, this credit, I'll take it. I had my older brother Bai Yan, in the name of the Bai family, stockpile a large amount of grain and medicinal herbs in Jiangnan in advance, and recruit craftsmen to draw detailed water conservancy blueprints. At the same time, I started managing the Bai family's business. In my past life, I handed over my vast family fortune for Chu Yansu, yet I myself was completely clueless about business. In this life, I picked up the lessons my father taught me since childhood and began to display my astonishing business talent. I used my foreknowledge of the price trends for the next few years to precisely invest in several businesses that seemed obscure, but in reality had huge potential: spices, sea transport, tea. In just 2 short months, the Bai family's wealth doubled. I was no longer that clinging vine hiding behind a man, needing to depend on others to survive. I used my own abilities to make the name Bai Qingyu rise to fame in the capital's business circles. A woman showing her face in public drew a lot of criticism, but I couldn't care less. My reputation was already torn to shreds by my own hands, back on that day at the palace gate. Now, I only want real power and wealth. And on the other side, Chu Yansu's days were getting harder and harder. Without the support of the Bai family, he was at his wit's end. Although the foundation of the Dinyuan Marquis Manor was deep, it had long been considerably hollowed out over the years by the ambitions of that father and son duo. Now that the funding chain was broken, they were immediately stretched thin. What made him even more uncomfortable was my change. He probably couldn't accept that the woman who once had eyes only for him now acted as if he was invisible, and was even more dazzling than him in her career. A man's pride was greatly challenged. He started using all sorts of methods to see me, once while I was out inspecting the shops. He stopped my horse carriage on the road. He stood in front of the carriage, his figure a bit haggard, but his gaze was still sharp. "Bai Qingyu, what on earth do you want?" he asked. I lifted the carriage curtain and looked at him coldly. "Shizi Chu, I believe I've made myself very clear. We have already divorced." "Divorce," he sneered, a hint of madness in his eyes. I didn't sign that paper. The authorities have no record of it, so it doesn't count. If you are my wife for a day, you are my wife for a lifetime. Is that so? I raised an eyebrow slightly. Then what about you cheating during your marriage, fooling around with your cousin, getting caught at the palace gate, and making the royal family lose all face? How should we settle that score? Chu Yanshu, do you really think the emperor would, for your sake, offend me, the god of wealth who now controls the purse strings of more than half the country? Yes, with the expansion of the Bai family's business, and the charitable acts I arranged before the Jiangnan flood, the emperor has already noticed me. He has summoned my father several times, and his words have been full of attempts to win us over. A family that can stabilize the nation's economic lifeline, its weight is far heavier than that of a notorious marquise's residence. Chu Yangsu's face turned extremely ugly. He clenched his fists tightly, and said word by word, "Qingyue, I know I was wrong. Come back. As long as you come back, I promise I'll never see Lin Wan again. I can send her away. Send her away." I laughed until tears were about to come out. "Chu Yangshu, do you think the problem is just about one Fang Ruoxi? The problem is you. It is your selfishness, your hypocrisy, your wolf-like ambition. What did you take my Bai family for? A stepping stone, to be kicked away after you are done using it?" My questioning left him speechless. He looked at me, his gaze complex, filled with regret, unwillingness, and a trace of fear that he himself was unwilling to admit. He was scared. He was scared of losing me, scared of losing the Bai family, this huge backer. "Qingye, give me one more chance." He softened his stance. His voice even carried a hint of pleading. If it were my past life, hearing him say such words, my heart would probably have melted. But now, I only feel disgusted. "A chance." I put away my smile, my gaze as cold as ice. "Sure, you kneel down now, kowtow every 3 steps from here all the way to the Bai family's gate, and maybe I'll consider letting you in to pour me a cup of tea." His face instantly flushed red, as if he had been greatly insulted. "By Qingye, don't you go too far. So what if I am going too far? What can you do about it?" I put down the carriage curtain, my voice coming out coldly. "Chu Yanshu, there has long been no possibility between us. What you should be doing now isn't begging me, but thinking about how to save your official position, and save the century-old foundation of your Marquis Dingyuan's mansion." "Hiya!" The carriage drove past him, and I didn't look back at him again. I knew these words would thoroughly enrage him, and also shatter the last shred of illusion he had about me. Very good. Only when backed into a corner does a beast bare its deadliest fangs. And I am just waiting for that moment he shows his fangs. Number Chapter 3. The Jiangnan layout. The Jiangnan flood arrived as scheduled. The imperial court was in a flurry, and the disaster relief officials it dispatched were corrupt and incompetent, causing the disaster to get worse and worse. Just as the court was in a state of anxiety, my elder brother Bai Yan, bringing my plan and everything that had been prepared, presented a memorial to the court. He not only offered several 100,000 shy of grain and a large amount of medicinal herbs, enough to solve the urgent crisis, but also presented that detailed plan for work, for relief and water conservancy construction. The dragon's heart was greatly pleased. The emperor immediately issued an order, putting Bai Yan in full charge of the Jiangnan disaster relief efforts, and promoted him to vice minister of the Ministry of Works. The Bai family, for the first time, had someone officially step into the core of the imperial court. And Chu Yanshu, the person who was supposed to shine brightly with this strategy, could now only watch helplessly as the glory that should have been his fell into the hands of the merchant family he despised the most. I could imagine how furious and indignant he would be. Sure enough, he started to fight back. He colluded with several imperial censors to present a memorial to the throne impeaching me and the Bai family, saying we spread bewitching words to delude the public, that foreseeing a natural disaster was an inauspicious sign, and also that we were hoarding for speculation, disrupting the market, and that our intentions were punishable by death. These accusations could be major or minor. On a smaller scale, it is commercial speculation. On a larger scale, it is shaking the very foundation of the state. In my past life, he used similar charges to frame us for the capital crime of colluding with the enemy in treason. In this life, I was already prepared. The day after the censor's impeachment, I requested an audience with the emperor in my capacity, as the eldest daughter of the Bai family. I knelt outside the imperial study for 4 hours before I was summoned for an audience. Bai Qingye. The emperor looked at me, his gaze profound. "Do you know of your crime?" I bowed and kowtowed, neither servile nor overbearing. "Your subject does not know. If I am to be accused of a crime, my crime lies in being a woman who has glimpsed the secrets of heaven. It lies in being a merchant who cares for the common people. If these are crimes, your subject is willing to accept punishment." "Oh?" The emperor became interested. "How did you glimpse the secrets of heaven?" I took a booklet out from my sleeve and presented it. "Your Majesty, this is not a secret of heaven, but a pattern. This is from my father's many years as a merchant, traveling north and south, and his records of the local customs, hydrology, and climate changes of various places. The records state that along the coast of Jiangnan, there is always a great flood in the years of Jiazi and Zhengwu, and this year happens to be Zhengwu. As for hoarding and profiteering, that is utter nonsense. This humble servant merely transported the grain to the vicinity of the disaster areas in advance, so it would be ready for use at any time. If I hadn't, who knows how many people would have starved to death by the time the imperial court's relief grain arrived. Everything this humble servant has done was to ease your Majesty's worries and to relieve the people's suffering. What crime is there in that?" My words were reasonable and well-founded, and that thick booklet was the most powerful proof. The emperor flipped through the booklet, his expression growing more and more grave. He was a capable ruler, so of course he could see the value of this booklet. "Good, what an impressive Bai Qingye." A flash of admiration showed in his eyes. "You not only have talent for business, but even a strategy for statecraft. What reward do you want?" I kowtowed again, my voice clear and cold. "I do not ask for a reward, I only ask for a decree of justice." "Justice? Yes." I raised my head and looked directly at the Son of Heaven. "Your subject and Chu Yanshu, the heir of the Marquis of Dingyuan's residence, have long since severed all ties of affection and duty. The incident at the palace gate is known to everyone. However, Chu Yanshu continues to pester me relentlessly, and the Marquis of Dingyuan's residence also refuses to let go. Now, Chu Yanshu has even joined forces with the imperial censors to slander your subject and the Bai family. Your subject implores your Majesty to issue an imperial edict, allowing me to officially separate from Chu Yanshu, so that we may part on good terms and have no further connection from now on. What I want is this complete freedom, personally bestowed by the emperor." The emperor fell silent. He was weighing his options. On one side was the Marquis of Dingyuan's residence, with its ruined reputation and waning power, and on the other was the Bai family, wealthy, having just rendered great service, and with a limitless future. This choice wasn't a difficult one. "Granted," he spoke with imperial finality. "We shall issue an edict and have the Ministry of Rights draft your separation document, to be announced to the entire realm from this day forward. You, Bai Qingye, will have no further connection to the Marquis of Dingyuan's residence." Furthermore, his tone shifted. "A remarkable woman like you should not be bound by worldly affairs. We ennoble you as Princess Huguo with a fief of 1,000 households, and bestow upon you a princess's residence. We hope that you will make even greater contributions to our great Zhou in the future." I looked up in astonishment. A princess, I, the daughter of a mere merchant, was actually being exceptionally ennobled as a princess. I instantly understood the emperor's intention. He wants to completely bind me, and the Bai family, to his war chariot. He saw my value, and he also saw the Bai family's wealth, which could rival a nation. He wants to use the empty title of a commandery princess to trap me, this chicken that can lay golden eggs. But isn't this also what I wanted? With the status of a commandery princess, I have a true protective talisman. Chu Yangshu and the Marquis Dingyuan mansion will no longer dare to mess with me so easily. Your servant thanks you for your immense grace." I bowed down deeply. When I walked out of the imperial palace with the imperial edict, in my capacity as Princess Huguo, I knew that my and Chu Yanshu's positions had been completely reversed. In the past he was high and mighty, and I was the one who humbly looked up. Nowadays I am an imperially appointed princess. He is just an infamous heir apparent. The difference between him and me is that of clouds and mud. Once the imperial edict was issued, the entire capital was in an uproar. The Marquis Dingyuan's residence became the biggest joke. The Bai family, whom they had tried so hard to curry favor with, not only completely drew a clear line with them, but the Bai family's daughter also suddenly became a Junju, with a higher status than them. I moved into the Junju's residence bestowed by the emperor. The mansion was right next to the imperial palace. Extraordinarily magnificent. Marquis Dinyuan was so angry he spat blood on the spot and became bedridden. And as for Chu Yanshu, it is said that the moment he received the imperial edict, he smashed everything in his study to smithereens. He came to the commandery princess's manor to find me. This time, he couldn't even get in the main gate. He stood outside the gate, looking at that gilded princess's mansion plaque, his eyes filled with overwhelming regret and resentment. "Bai Qingye, you come out," he roared. I sat upright in the pavilion of the manor's garden, leisurely sipping tea, listening to a servant report on the situation outside the gate. "Let him shout," I instructed lightly. "When his voice gets hoarse, he'll leave on his own." He shouted for a whole afternoon, from angry roars at the start to pitiful pleas later on. "Qingyu, I was wrong. I was really wrong. Come back." "Okay, I'll give the position of heir apparent to you." "No, I'll give you the entire Marquis Dinyuan's estate." "Qingyu, have you forgotten our past? You said you'd marry no one but me in this life." Listening to these words, I only found it ironic. "Yeah, I used to love you so much, but how did you treat me? Your love is too cheap, and your regret is too late." He wasn't forcefully carried away by the people from the Marquis Dinyuan's residence until it was dark. It is said that he fell gravely ill after he returned, with a high fever that wouldn't break, and kept shouting my name. And Fang Ruoxi's situation was even more miserable. Having lost Chu Yansu's protection and also been branded as the other woman, she completely lost her place in the capital's circle of noble ladies. Marchioness Dinyuan, that is, my ex-mother-in-law, took all her anger out on her, torturing her in all sorts of ways. It is so true that what goes around, comes around. But is this enough? Number the blood feud for the 100+ lives of my Bai family, the life of my unborn child. How could letting them suffer this little bit of torment possibly atone for that? What I want is to doom them beyond redemption. Number Chapter 4. Surging Undercurrents. I began to use my status as a commandery princess to cultivate my own power in the imperial court. My older brother Bai Yan performed outstandingly in the disaster relief in Jiangnan, with brilliant political achievements, so I joined forces with several ministers I am on good terms with, to submit a joint memorial strongly pushing for him to be promoted another level. At the same time, using my memories from my past life, I began to gather evidence of Marquis Dinyuan and Chu Yanshu's corruption, perversion of the law, and formation of cliques for personal gain. In my past life, they managed to bring down the Bai family, and did so flawlessly. In this life, I will use the same method to nail them to the pillar of shame. This process Chu Yansu also seemed to have recovered from the blow. He knew it was hopeless to beg me, so he began to burn his bridges and search for a new backer. He latched onto the third prince, Xiao Cheng'an. The third prince was incredibly ambitious, had always coveted the position of crown prince, and was in great need of support from a military family like the house of Marquis Dinyuan. They began to secretly build up their power, plotting a huge conspiracy. And all of this was just as I had predicted. In his past life, it was by assisting the third prince to ascend the throne that Chu Yanshu ultimately had his meteoric rise, becoming a marquis and prime minister. In this life, I am going to tear their beautiful dream to shreds with my own hands. On the surface, I remained composed, continuing to run my business and expand my commercial empire. But secretly, I took all the evidence I had collected, and in batches and according to plan, anonymously delivered it into the hands of Crown Prince Xiao Jingyuan. The Crown Prince is benevolent, but he is not foolish. Faced with the relentless pressure from the third prince and the Marquis of Dinyuan's estate, he had long been on alert. This evidence of mine was like sending charcoal in a snowstorm, allowing him to see his opponent's hidden cards. A war without gunpowder smoke quietly began in the imperial court. Chu Yanshu seemed to have sensed something, and he began to act even more frantically. He actually hired assassins to try and kill me. On a dark and windy night, a dozen or so men in black snuck into the commandery princess's manor, but the guards by my side were no longer the ordinary ones from before. Bayan had recruited top masters from the pugilistic world for me, and the defenses of the commandery princess's manor were impenetrable. The assassins came but never returned. The next day, I had people take the dozen or so corpses, along with one who was left alive, and send them all to the main gate of the Marquis of Dingyuan's estate. That survivor, in front of all the onlookers, confessed everything in detail. It was Chu Yansu who had sent them. Public opinion was once again in an uproar. Hiring assassins just because he couldn't get a divorce. Chu Yanchu's character had degenerated to an appalling degree. The emperor was furious, and ordered Chu Yanshu to be thrown into the imperial prison to await sentencing. The Marquis of Dingyuan dragged his ailing body to the palace to plead for mercy, but was turned away at the gates by the emperor. The fate of the Marquis of Dingyuan's estate was sealed. I thought this was already the end, but I never expected that the third prince, Xiao Chenghan, would actually choose to risk it all to protect Chu Yanshu. He joined forces with the commander of the capital's garrison, and launched a palace coup. That night, the sky was lit by raging fires, and battle cries echoed throughout the entire capital. Because the commandery princess's mansion is closest to the imperial palace, it bore the brunt of the attack and became one of the rebel army's targets. They wanted to capture me, to use me to threaten the emperor and the crown prince. I stood on the high tower inside the mansion, coldly watching the dense black mass of rebels outside. "Princess, we'll escort you out through the secret passage," Bain said anxiously. I shook my head. "No, I am not leaving." I looked in the direction of the imperial palace where the firelight was most intense. "This is my last chance," I muttered to myself. "I will make Chu Yansu die without a burial place. I will make the Marquis Dingyuan's mansion disappear completely from this world." I changed into a sharp, practical outfit, and picked up my long-neglected longsword. Before becoming Chu Yanshu's wife, Bai Qingye had also learned martial arts. Though I couldn't compare to those Jianggu masters, it was more than enough for self-defense. "Bain, gather all the guards," I ordered. "We are not going to the secret passage. We are going to the palace to save the emperor. Princess, it is too dangerous. Fortune is found in danger." I looked at him, my eyes firm. When the nest is overturned, can any egg remain unbroken? If the crown prince is defeated today, our Bai family won't survive either. On the other hand, if we win, the Bai family will usher in a century of glory. Follow me and kill. Sword in hand, I was the first to charge out of the princess manor. The Bai family's guards, infected by my fervor, followed behind me with bloodshot eyes, plunging viciously into the rebel army's formation like a sharp dagger. We fought our way to the imperial palace. On the way, we encountered the crown prince's guards, who had been scattered by the rebel army. The general at the head was, surprisingly, the fourth prince Xiao Jingyan, whom I hadn't seen in a long time. He had always stayed out of political affairs, an idle prince. Yet at this moment, he was in full armor, holding a long spear, protecting the crown prince. In my past life, because he opposed the third prince's ascension to the throne, he was framed by Chu Yanshu and granted death by a cup of poisoned wine. When he saw me, a flash of surprise crossed his eyes. "Princess Huguo? Your fourth highness, your highness the crown prince." I cupped my hands and said, "This subject has come to save your highnesses." Crown Prince Xiao Jingyuan saw the several hundred elite guards I brought, and was overjoyed. "Good. County Mistress Bai is loyal and brave. Everyone, follow me to fight our way back to the palace and capture the traitors." With our joining, the situation instantly turned around. We fought our way back to the throne room inside. The third prince was pointing his sword at the old emperor, forcing him to write an edict of abdication. And by his side stood a figure I hated to the bone, Chu Yanshu. He was actually rescued from the sky prison by the third prince. When he saw me, he was first shocked, then a vicious resentment erupted in his eyes. "Bai Qingye, you actually dare to come here," he roared. "Why wouldn't I dare to come?" I sneered, the tip of my sword pointed straight at him. "I've come to see you off on your final journey. Protect the emperor," the crown prince shouted. The people from both sides instantly started fighting each other. I bypassed the crowd and rushed straight toward Chu Yanshu. He raised his sword and came to meet me. Number, it is all you. It was you who ruined everything for me." His every move was vicious, all aimed at my vital points. I calmly parried, "The one who ruined you was yourself. Your greed, your heartlessness, your ambition, those are the true culprits that pushed you into the abyss. I was really blind back then to have fallen in love with a scumbag like you." "Shut up." He was enraged by my words, and a flaw appeared in his swordsmanship. I seized the opportunity, and with a flick of my wrist, my longsword shot out like a venomous snake from its hole, instantly slashing across his wrist. He let out a miserable scream, and the sword in his hand fell to the ground. I kicked him to the ground and pressed the cold tip of my sword against his throat. He looked at me in terror, his eyes finally showing complete fear and despair. "Qingyu, no, Your Highness, spare my life. For the sake of us having been husband and wife." He started to beg for mercy. "Husband and wife?" I laughed. A laugh of utter desolation. "Chu Yanshu, do you still remember my unborn child? He was 7 months old, already formed. It was you who personally held that bowl of medicine and poured it into my mouth. As you listened to the sound of him turning into bloody water and flowing away, did you feel even a shred of heartache? Do you still remember the more than 100 members of my Bai family? They were all framed by you, and died tragically under the butcher's knife. In your midnight nightmares, do you hear their wails?" My voice was like a curse from the 9 hells, making him tremble all over, his face ashen as death. "Number. It wasn't me, that wasn't me," he argued incoherently. "Not you?" I leaned down and whispered in his ear. "Chu Yanshu, every single thing you've done, I remember it all crystal clear, because I am the one who crawled back from hell to claim your life." With that said, I no longer hesitated, and forcefully stabbed down with the longsword in my hand. Fresh blood spurted out, splashing all over my face, warm and metallic sweet. Chu Yanshu's eyes widened, and he died with them unclosed. He'll die without ever understanding why I knew those things that hadn't happened yet. And as I looked at his fallen corpse, the giant rock that had weighed on my heart for 2 lifetimes finally came crashing down. Me great revenge has been taken. Number Chapter 5. The dust settles, the palace coup has been quelled. The third prince, Xiao Chengyan, was deposed to commoner status and placed under house arrest for life. All accomplices who participated in the rebellion, including the house of Marquis Dinyuan, had their entire families executed. For my merit in saving the emperor, I was ennobled by His Majesty as the Grand Princess, with a revered status second to none. Me elder brother, Bai Yan, was also promoted to Minister of Revenue for his merits, truly taking control of the nation's purse strings. The Bai family welcomed an unprecedented glory. One day after the dust had settled, the fourth prince, Xiao Jingyan. Oh no, now the crown prince. Xiao Jingyan found me in the imperial garden. He looked at me, his gaze gentle. "It is all over," I nodded. "What are your future plans, Grand Princess?" he asked. I gazed at the distant sky where clouds drifted and scattered, a scene of tranquility. "To read 10,000 books and travel 10,000 li, I suppose," I said softly. "To see the misty rain of Jiangnan and the lone smoke of the northern deserts. This world is so big, I want to go and see it. The love and hate of my past life, the revenge in this one, have exhausted half a lifetime of my energy. Now that my great vengeance is fulfilled, I only want to live for myself." He was silent for a moment, then suddenly smiled. "That is good too. Then, would you be willing to travel with me?" I froze and turned my head to look at him. He stood under a peach blossom tree dressed in white, with a handsome and elegant demeanor. Sunlight filtered through the gaps in the petals and scattered onto him, impossibly gentle. "The vast land is too lonely to walk alone." He looked at me, his eyes filled with a seriousness and anticipation I had never seen before. I looked into his eyes and suddenly smiled a genuine, relaxed smile. Perhaps after experiencing a hellish rebirth, heaven has finally given me an unexpected tenderness. I didn't answer him, just turned and walked out of the palace. He didn't press for an answer either, just followed behind me at an unhurried pace. The sun was just right, and the breeze was gentle. The road ahead is still long, but this time, I am no longer alone. The spring breeze blew, and peach blossoms fluttered about. In this life, I Bai Qingyu have finally done right by myself. Number Epilogue 3 years later. Jiangnan. In the misty rain, a painted pleasure boat slowly sailed across West Lake. Inside the cabin, I was organizing the account books. The Bai family's business is now all over the world, and although I travel far and wide, I have never let go of my work. "Busy again?" Xiao Jingyan walked in with 2 cups of tea, placing one in front of me. "I've told you, you can just leave these things to Bai Yan. I am used to it." I took the teacup and took a sip. Besides, if I were to truly be idle, I am afraid I'd get sick from boredom. He chuckled and sat down beside me. That is true. This wife of mine, the Grand Princess Consort, is perfect in every way, except she is too strong-willed. The title Grand Princess Consort was specially bestowed by the Emperor after we got married a year ago. When he proposed to me back then, I had hesitated. After all, the marriage in my previous life left me with such deep scars. But he said, "Qingyue, I am not Chu Yanshu. What I want isn't your wealth nor your help, just you as a person. If you are willing, we'll join hands and see this magnificent world. If you are not, I'll never force you, and will still be by your side as your most steadfast support." In the end, I nodded. In this past year, we've traveled all over the country, seen the snows beyond the Great Wall, and also seen the rains of Zhongyan. He never interferes with my business. On the contrary, he often helps me strategize. Between us, we are truly walking side by side. By the way, Xiao Jingyin suddenly said, news came from the imperial court that the old mansion of the Marquis Dingyuan estate has been demolished. My imperial brother plans to build an academy on that land, specifically to cultivate students from humble backgrounds. I paused, putting down the account book in my hand. That is for the best. Turning that sinful place into one for teaching and nurturing people is a good ending, after all. Also, he hesitated for a moment. I heard that after the Marquis Dingyuan's estate was confiscated, Feng Ruoxi was exiled to the frontier. She has gone mad now. I was silent for a moment. Feng Ruoxi, the woman who became Princess Ale in my previous life, has ended up with such a fate in this one. But I felt no sympathy in my heart. She participated in the schemes against me and the Bai family. Her hands are also stained with blood. This is the retribution she deserves. Let the past be the past, I said softly. I just want to look forward now. Xiao Jingyin held my hand. Okay, let's look forward. Outside the window, the rain gradually stopped, and a rainbow appeared on the horizon. Looking at that brilliant splash of color, a long-lost sense of peace suddenly welled up in my heart. The hatred of the past life, the revenge of this life, have all come to an end. From now on, I, Bai Qingyu, can finally truly live for myself. This life, I will live it to the fullest. The end.